good this morning.
Yeah! We found that truckload right there.
That's right there. Group is blazing hard out.
Man! Yeah!
Give me something, boys.
Let's go!
One day in the spring of 1972, Mr. E.F. Vinson and Jimmy Freeman took a journey off down to Loretta, and they purchased a set of old worn-out baseball uniforms, second-hand gloves, second-hand bats, and all the equipment. And this was the beginning of Summertown High School baseball. And little did we know that 20 years later, Summertown would bring home a state championship. Let's talk a little bit about that first year. Is in 1972, Summertown played an 11-game schedule, and they were all on the road. We didn't have a field in Summertown suitable to play on. The highlight of that first year, Jimmy Freeman carried his troops up to Columbia Central. Now this was before classification, and every school played together. Carried his team up to Columbia Central, and Columbia come into the game with a 17-0 record. And Jimmy Freeman and the Eagles gave Columbia their first defeat of the year, and as it turned out, their only defeat. They wound up 24-1. Now Summertown has had 3 head coaches in the last 20 years. Jimmy Freeman was the first coach, John Cook coached a few years, and our present coach, Ricky Haddock. And Summertown has never had a losing season in its 20 years of competition in the high school ranks. And twice we placed second in the state, that coming in 1979 under Coach John Cook, and then again in 1985 under Coach Ricky Haddock. So with this background today, that brings us to today's program. And we have the 2 coaches of the Summertown High School baseball team with us. Welcome. We've got Coach Ricky Haddock and Coach Kenny Campbell. We welcome you boys to the program today.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie. Pleasure to be here.
It's good to have you. Kenny, good to have you too.
Good to be here, Charlie.
And what I'd like to do today is reminisce a little bit about this 1992 state championship. We might get the thoughts rolling a little bit. What were your coaches' thoughts before the season? What were your plans, or how did you think your team would do when, early in the season?
Charlie, we both of us thought pretty much so that we'd have a pretty good defensive team. Even though we were fairly young, the year before I started several freshmen, and but we had the idea that there would be a pretty good defensive team. We had a lack of seniors, so but the 2 that we had, or the 3 that we had, really showed some good leadership.
Who were you 3 seniors, Kenny?
Michael Dickey and the 2 seniors that had played the most for us, I guess, every year in high school was Robin Kidd and Greg Burleson, who both did an excellent job for us this year.
Yeah, they were both good players, good steady players. You could count on them for leadership. I know Greg Burleson was on the basketball team. He was the point guard, and that's an important place on the basketball team, is the leader. So he led your baseball team too. What positions did he play?
Greg started out with us pitching. He played shortstop, little first base. Him and Robin kind of alternated because they were my main 2 pitchers to start off the season with, and throughout the season. Greg is the type of kid that he could play any position that you ask him to.
All right, talk about Robin Kidd. You expected a lot out of this boy. He comes from a family of tradition of pitchers before him. He had, what, 2 brothers?
2 brothers, and both of them played for me while they were at Summertown. Tommy Lee is the oldest. I used him a lot of times in relief whenever he was pitching for me. And a matter of fact, he went to the 85. He was on the 85 team that went to the state finals in Knoxville. Chris was a good, hard-throwing pitcher that pitched for me year before last, I believe, and really did a good job. So I did have high respects and expectations for Robin, and he did not let me down all season long.
Kenny, in the early season, I know you had your thought about the team. You were the first base coach. How much problems did you have getting the runners around base and to pay attention to you?
Well, runners listened well, but sometimes we had a few miscues over that first where we had a few picked off, a few of the inexperienced boys mainly. But overall, we ran the bases fairly well this year. We had quite a bit of speed with our first 2 or 3 hitters. Scott Haddock and Larry Parrott, I guess, were 2 of the faster kids on any team this year. And if one of those 2 could get on, usually we would have a good chance of scoring each inning.
Yeah, that's about as much speed as any team had as what you had in the lineup. They were sort of small boys, some of them, but we still had a little power. Did you have the power at the early year, or did it build?
It kind of built throughout the year. Of course, Greg started off with a couple of homers early in the season, but as far as the other guys that hit home runs, it kind of built throughout the year. Even as small as Larry Parrott was, I think he knocked out about 4 or 5 home runs during the season. But we were, like we were talking about a while ago, looking for defense. And, of course, to have good defense, you must have speed and agility. And we got that out of the young players that played for me this time.
Kenny, I may get in trouble saying this, but we brought up Larry Parrott, and I think he is the best center fielder that Summertown High School's ever had. I rate him right up with Alan Chapman. I had Alan rated at the top. At the beginning of the season, how much of this potential did you see?
Well, Larry's always been a good defensive ball player. When I coached in Dixie Youth at Etheridge, Larry played on one of the main opposing teams that we played against, and I knew he had good capability as far as speed and covering a lot of territory in the outfield. And our instructions was to him: you catch anything you can catch. If it's hit, in the gap or anything, you take charge, because that's the responsibility of a center fielder. And I think the play when we made it the sub-state game with Forrest, when he almost ran through the fence or over the fence to attempt to catch a ball, kind of spurred our other players on as far as the importance of that game and then other games to follow. That's kind of leadership that you want out of any player.
Yeah, I remember the game that you're talking about. I remember that catch. He went in the hole in right field one inning. The next inning, he went in deep into the hole in the gap in left center, and nothing got by him, and it seemed to be that way all year.
Yeah.
We'll be back in just a second. All right, speaking of some of these other boys, what was the comment you made about Robin, Kenny?
Okay, Robin and Greg both pitched a lot smarter this year than they did the year before. Experience, and they made some good pitches with 2 strikes. They didn't serve the ball up, or try to throw the ball over the plate. The very next pitch, they threw it a little bit outside or inside, and usually the batter will get himself out. So in that respect, they pitched a lot smarter ball, in my opinion, this year.
All right, in this same vein, we need to talk about your catcher, Brent Blackwood, as a junior. Has he always been as good a kid as he seems to be now, as good a ball player as has his talent built as he come along?
Brent has really improved, Charlie. Last year, I alternated him with another catcher at different games, and he was having problems as far as moving and blocking the ball. And, of course, I knew he had a good throwing arm. But he has really improved this year on his stopping the ball, blocking it, he's gained a little weight, and I guess you'd say filled out more, and he is a backstop as far as stopping the ball, not letting it get through, and that keeps runners on base, where a lot of times they'll pick up that extra base on a loose ball.
Right.
And his arm, we've had other coaches comment about that all season long, about him gunning people down at second base.
Well, he's gunned several down. All right, on this point, let's go into our district race. How did your season start out?
Well, Charlie, we started out playing some non-district games, and it was real early in the season, and some of the guys that had been playing basketball, I had them out about 3 days for practice before we started playing. And, of course, that shows in not being as far as adapted to the baseball, referring to the basketball, but we won the first game, a non-district game with Hampshire, I believe it was. And then we played two tough non-district teams, Lewis County, and suffered defeat there. And then we played rival Lawrenceburg. And, of course, that's a game anytime we play them, and lost that one by 1 run.
Well, I'm going to say something else here. Lawrenceburg people are going to be watching this.
Well,
all Lawrenceburg people has to do is hang their britches on the
that's right.
backstop.
That's right, and it's a
game.
game. It's a game
Right.
every time we meet each other. And after that Lawrenceburg loss, that put a record at 1-2. And just right after that time period is when we started playing in our district play. And from then on, we kind of progressed gradually. And I believe we run off a string there of 13 in a row.
13 consecutive victories. That brings us to another ball player that we need to talk about. I did a few basketball games, and he also plays basketball, as some of the others did, you've already said. And only thing I can say about him is he's just an amazing athlete, and wherever you put him. Never opens his mouth. He may to you, but I've never seen him open his mouth. Just goes out and does his job. That's Jason Burleson.
I knew who you were talking about before you named him there, Charlie. Jason is a super guy. Like you said, he doesn't have a lot of comments to make. Very quiet, and he goes about it in just a natural type motion in everything he does.
Yeah.
He never seems to get too shook up
And
under pressure.
We got to
or
remember
anything.
he's still only a sophomore.
That's right. But he never gets shook up over anything. And so far, every time that I've asked him to do something, he's stepped in and done it.
And done it capably.
And done it capably.
But Kenny, I'm not going to ask the coach to talk about his son.
Okay.
How did Scott Haddock wind up playing third base? He's improved steadily over the year, I think. How did he wind up at third base?
Well, if I recall correctly, Ricky played him at shortstop the year before some, and at third base, and Scott, that seems to be more his natural position than any other position that we tried. And we move him around. He's one of these players that could play anywhere, probably on the infield. But he has, as you said, shown steady improvement with his skills at third base, and he improved his batting quite a bit this year, is more in control, I think, up at the plate than he was last year, and that's just playing a lot of ball games and getting some maturity and having a good team around him as well.
And likewise, John Campbell, how did he wind up? What grade is he in, and how did he wind up at second base?
John's a sophomore, and he didn't get a whole lot of playing time in last year. Of course, I've seen John play Babe Ruth ball and everything else, and we originally had started Scott out at second base this year, and through a defensive move, we just moved him to third, and John just filled in the spot. and did a good job all season long.
He did a good job. He made very few errors, I noticed.
Very few errors, and of course he matured all year long as well.
And he could turn the double play.
Yeah.
Turn the double play capably.
Before we go on to any of these other guys, Charlie, I might mention here, I was figuring up a few of the averages and things on these first 6 batters in the lineup, and I'm not sure what other teams their batting averages were, but out of the first 6 batters in our lineup, all of them were batting over 300. And, well, the way it ended up, they're all batting over 330.
Well, that's commendable, how 6 players, well, it takes that kind of lineup to win state championship or to win any tournament game.
You've got to be steady all the way through the lineup, and even the lower end of the lineup contributed off and on all year long.
And then we come down to the number 9 hitter in the order, and what does he do? Doug Lucius.
Doug has been playing for me since he was in the 8th grade. He's a junior this year, and he has had hard times and good times. I think when he was an 8th grader, he led the team in hitting. Never did knock the ball over the fence or anything, just clean base hits. And, of course, he's a good, steady defensive player in the outfield. And I've even used Doug to catch some.
Sure enough.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
You know, he's the type of kid that is very easy to get along with. And, of course, we'll probably be talking about it a little later, but everybody knows that he can bunt the ball.
Yeah, we'll get in on that a little bit later. We also know he's fast-footed.
Yes, he is.
Then we've got Aaron Bailey. Let's say a word or two about Aaron Bailey.
Okay, Aaron has got quite a bit of speed. He was our designated hitter most of the year. He started some games. Primarily we used him as a designated hitter for Michael Dickey. And he did a good job. He moved runners, and he got to making better contact toward the end of the season. I think just getting to play more and seeing the ball, you know, more at bats and so forth. And he wound up, the lower part of our order really did a good job in the state tournament, which we'll get to later on in this, but those boys really came through toward the end of our season.
All right, then you had your, I guess you'd call him your number 4 pitcher. If I'm out of order, you can tell me. Josh Hughes. Big Josh, everybody knows him, what, 6'4", 6'5", 6'6".
He's a big kid.
He's
about 6'3" or 4", somewhere in that range there.
What grade is he in?
He's a sophomore. Most of the team are sophomores. Josh did a good job this year as far as coming in and pitching. I guess probably through the season, he was my number 3 pitcher. I believe he racked up like a record of 5-1 going into the state tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he's the type kid that can throw hard, and he needs to develop a little more as far as his stamina and how he controls with different batters at the plate.
I think
we're looking for a lot out of him next year with the absence of Greg and Robin.
I think if Josh will develop a little more mental toughness,
Yeah.
that he'd be a top-notch ball
He
player.
can throw the ball. He can throw it.
Right.
He just needs more experience and a little more maturity and a little more belief in himself. At times he gets down on himself.
Most of these guys are playing down in the senior league, Charlie, and I'm hoping that, like Kenny was saying, I hope he gets a lot of opportunities to pitch while he's down there this year.
Maybe he will. We'll be back in a sec. I believe we're into district play now. Let's continue with our season. How are we coming along?
Well, as I said a while ago, Charlie, we, after our starting record of 1 win and 2 losses, we reeled off an area there of 13 in a row wins. Of course, in that group of wins, we had district games, non-district games as well. And we finished the regular season as far as our district with a perfect 6-0 record. And no one in the district had defeated us.
Let's see, that's Collinwood.
Collinwood, Perry County, Waynesboro, and us.
Okay.
And getting ready for the district tournament, we had to face some non-district teams, some tough non-district teams, and we faced, of course, Lawrenceburg again, and they were the ones that ended our 13-0 run as far as wins, which that might have opened up our eyes right before tournament time.
I got another point I can make right here. They started their baseball program in 1972 also. Same year
time.
Summertown did.
I didn't realize that. But after the Lawrenceburg loss, as I said, we were fixing to start our district tournament, and that was held over at Collinwood High School. And our first game in the tournament, since we were seeded first, we were placed against the 4th place team, Perry County. And in that game, Jason Burleson went to the mound and pitched a 11-1 victory for us. I believe we ended that one in 5 innings.
Mm-hmm.
And of course that put us in the winner's bracket, and we had to face Collinwood again, which Collinwood is always tough against Summertown. Sort of like the Lawrenceburg series we were talking about a while ago. When Summertown and Collinwood meet, it's always a game.
Right.
And in the first, in the winner's bracket of the district tournament, we defeated Collinwood. One of those close barn burners. It was 6-5.
If I recall correct, Coach, that was a 9-inning affair.
Yeah,
It was extra innings.
That was 9 innings.
It was a tough win.
Tough win. And then that threw us into the winner's bracket as far as having to be defeated twice for the district championship, or district tournament championship. And of course, who did we face again? Collinwood. We faced those guys 5 times this season. And of course, when we faced them that 4th time, they defeated us by a score of 4-8. And that was our first loss to any district team in our district, and the only one.
The entire year.
The entire year. So that forced us into a second game to find out who the district champion was. And we came to the light there in that game with the help of Josh Hughes, who we were talking about earlier. He came in relief in the loss, the first game, and pitched, I believe, 4 innings of ball during that period. And I turned around, and he was so raring to go with the second game, I came right back with him the second game.
And it paid off.
And it paid off. According to the TWSAA rules, pitcher could only pitch 10 innings. Well, Josh was fired up and ready to go, and I started him out in the second game. And he pitched 6, I believe, scoreless innings, didn't he? Or, I'm not sure exactly.
I believe it did, yeah.
I believe it did. And that's all he could pitch for that day. And I brought in Greg Burleson to finish us off. And Greg shut him down, and we did win that ball game by a score of 9-2.
That made you district champs. Kenny, we won the district tournament. What were your and Ricky's thoughts at this point about your team?
Well, glad to be district champions. We were regular season champions, and really you can throw that out the window when it comes tournament time. That's when you have to play ball during the tournament. And was the second year in a row that we were district champions, so we were well pleased with the effort. And beating Collingwood 4 out of 5 games is a task that's well done if you can do that each year, because they're always tough.
Yeah, that's a feat within itself, yeah.
Right.
In case you haven't figured it out up to this point, we're on the roll up to the state championship. We're going to bring home a state championship here in a few minutes. All right, let's get over into the regional tournament now. I believe that comes next, doesn't it?
Yes, the way that the schedule ran for the region tournament, it happened to be even numbered years, so the even numbered district got to host that.
We're District 12.
And we're District 12, so we were hosting the first round of the district tournament, the regional tournament. And of course, we had to face another rival of ours just up the road, Mount Pleasant.
Always tough.
Always tough. And we hadn't played Mount Pleasant all season long, during the regular season or anything. I just...
Would you want to comment on why?
Well, they had a couple of new teams to enter their district, so that put them playing about 4 more games during the regular season that they had to get in.
I know a lot of fans wondering why we didn't play them during the year.
Coach Bassham and I, we talked and we tried to work out some things at other times, but it just didn't work out. So maybe next year we can get on the schedule with them regularly like we have been in the past. But, of course, all I'd heard about Mount Pleasant was how tough they were. Of course, I knew they were tough. They were senior laden, had a group of seniors on their team. And so Coach Campbell and I got together and talked about who we were going to start in that game. And since he'd had several days rest between the district tournament and the region, we decided to go with Greg Burleson. And he come out smoking. Greg pitched a super ball game. I don't remember exactly. It seems like he gave up a total of about 3 hits.
Yeah, it seems right.
And it ended up a 3-hit shutout where we defeated Mount Pleasant 6-0.
All right, this was the first of 3 consecutive shutouts.
3 consecutive shutouts.
All right, let's go to the second one now.
All right, second one was the regional championship. And like before, we got to host it at our school at Summertown. And we met up with last year's state runner-up, Columbia Academy. This too, we'd faced Columbia Academy once during the season, and it was a nail-biter.
Right.
We defeated them 1-0. And they were coming into the game, I know, primed and ready to go against us because they were using their ace, the E-step boy. And we got to them right off the bat. Since Greg had rest from Thursday to the following Tuesday, I came back with Greg Burleson, and he proceeded to pitch another shutout.
Right.
I believe this was only a 1 or a 2-hitter.
I think so. Maybe.
And we defeated Columbia Academy for the region championship by a score of 8-0.
That's 2 consecutive shutouts. All right, where do we go now?
And 2 of them pitched by the same fella.
Both of them pitched by Greg Burleson. All right, let's go to number 3.
What they have done now as far as how they line up play after the regional championship, they call it the quarterfinals of the state. And of course the winner of that goes on to the Final Four in the state tournament. And in that game we played Forest High School out of Chapel Hill, Tennessee. And from everything that I could round up as far as information about Chapel Hill, I talked to other coaches, and they had defeated a good team in Huntland to get to where they were. And I might say again, we also got to host that, being
right.
An even-numbered region. So everything seemed to fall into place. Us getting to host all these major games to get to the state finals at our home field. In that game, I pitched Robin Kidd. And Robin pitched a great ball game.
It's been several days since he'd been on the mound.
Yes, it has. Well, he hadn't pitched since the district tournament.
Right.
And well rested. And he threw one of his best ball games of the season.
You know, I sat over there with part of the ball game with Coach from Mount Pleasant and some of the Forest fans, and they expected to come up and blow Summertown out that day.
Well, it was a definite turnaround because it ended the other way.
Right.
The third shutout, 10-0, and we ended that one in the 6th inning with a 2-run home run by Jason Burleson to defeat them 10-0 in 6 innings.
And that was the quarterfinals of the state, the 3rd consecutive shutout.
Right, and of course that put us in the Final Four. And you know, we had been there before in 1985, when it was a different format. We had to go through what they call the semifinals to get to the finals, and then there was just 2 teams left, and you had to play a best 2 out of 3.
All right, where is this played?
In 85, it was played in Knoxville. Now the format is the Final Four after the quarterfinal game would be played a double elimination tournament in Murfreesboro at the MTSU campus.
That seems to be a more fair way to determine the championship.
Yeah, it is. No one has a home court advantage, and of course, for us being in Middle Tennessee, it was a lot closer than from some of these other schools that were in East Tennessee or West Tennessee. But they have a great facility there at MTSU, and we were just looking forward to getting there.
All right, Kenny, we're in Murfreesboro now. What was your thoughts about the team now?
Well, my thoughts were, I was pretty confident throughout the whole state tournament. These kids kind of stayed on an even keel. They weren't highly emotional kids where we won or lost. They seemed to have things in perspective. And after our first day of play, and when we saw the other teams, I felt we had as good a shot as anybody to win the state tournament.
But getting in that loser's bracket, we lost the first ball game. What happened in that ball game?
Greg started out for me on that. And, well, he pitched the whole ball game and did a fine job. A couple of pitches got away from him. One in particular, a 3-run homer in the 1st inning, I believe. But during that game, he struck out 12 of the Johnson City batters, and he did a great job. We didn't follow up with our bats at key times, and you know, it could have went either way, I guess.
Right, we only scored 2 runs, and
the score of that game was 5-2. Well, like I said, we had faced their best pitcher, and he didn't impress me as much as what I'd heard about this guy all the way down the line. But and after we watched the other 2 teams play, it took some of the pressure off us.
Yeah.
And we were more relaxed. And like Kenny said a while ago, these guys, they didn't get upset. They act very mature for as young a team as we were, and I guess a lot of that is because of the coolness of the senior leaders that we did have.
Right, and that brings us on into Tuesday to a loser's bracket game. The loser goes home.
That's right. We played a team from about as far west or northwest as you can get, Lake County. In this game, I came back with Robin Kidd as the pitcher, and Robin threw his heart out. His arm didn't feel the best in the world, but he gave it all he had. And we didn't play a great game, but played good enough to win. And the final score was 3-2.
So that sent Lake County home. There were only 3 teams left.
That's right. Lake County went home. That left us, Johnson City, and Davidson Academy.
And the very next game, Davidson County sent Johnson City home. So that left 2.
No, the next way it went, Charlie. Since Johnson City beat us, they played Davidson Academy in a winner's bracket, and Davidson County beat them, and that threw them down in the loser's bracket, and Davidson Academy were sitting at the top of the heap and had to be beat twice.
Right. But that threw us to play Johnson City again.
Right.
Okay.
We met Johnson City on Wednesday morning over there at the state tournament. This game was an up and down type game. I think they scored first, and then we came back and reeled off several runs and jumped out to a lead of 8-4, I remember. And the guy that I was pitching that day was Josh Hughes. He had an up and down game, but we got some precious innings out of him. Coming out of this loser's bracket, you have to have pitchers that you get innings out of during this type of tournament. They ended up tying the ball game up in the late innings. I believe it was about the 5th or 6th inning, and it was tied up 8-8. I removed Josh, put in Jason Burleson to pitch, and he finished the game up and got the win in relief, because in the top of the 7th inning, Jason got on an error himself, stole second base, and with 2 outs and 2 strikes on my 8th place hitter, John Campbell, he came through with a game-winning hit, as it turned out, knocking Jason in for the winning run, and we went on and defeated them by a score of 9-8.
9-8. That sent Johnson City home.
And that put us as only 2 teams left.
2
in the
teams
state
left.
tournament.
We've got to win 2 ball games.
Got to win 2 ball games, and this game with Johnson City that eliminated them was played at 10 o'clock in the morning that morning, and we were scheduled to turn around and play Davidson Academy at 5 that afternoon.
All right. We're sitting there all afternoon after that ball game. Were the wheels a turning? How much rest did you get?
Not much. I don't know how much sleep we got those 3 or 4 nights we were over there. I know I pitched ball with Josh Hughes all the night before the day he started. Me and him, I was worn out. I don't know how he was after 4 innings. But we didn't get a lot of sleep. I know I didn't. Every time I'd turn a little bit, Coach would be turning over there.
But between the 2 games, we did have a nice little time period where we could a little relax on that day. The 2 Bailey boys, David and Paul, took the team over to the Cracker Barrel.
Oh.
And we had a big meal, and like I said, the boys just seemed very relaxed.
Yeah.
And we went back over to watch the game that was preceding us, and sort of just sat around getting ready for that 5 o'clock game.
I've got to ask you a question right here. Now, I don't remember who told me, but somebody told me that you checked out of the motel that morning.
Well,
Did you check the team out of the motel?
We did, because just for the simple fact that, you know,
Wasn't glad to stay another night?
What if?
Okay. I just had to ask you that anyway.
Yeah.
Well, you made arrangements if we won that we could stay.
That's
didn't you?
right.
Oh, did you?
I done had the room reserved in
okay.
case.
All right. Well, I didn't hear that part.
It wasn't because we wasn't believing we could do it.
That's right.
All right. It's 5 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon. Almost made us all late for church. All right. Let's go into that ball game.
Well, of course, we were playing Davidson Academy out of Nashville, Tennessee. And I used Jason Burleson in relief that morning, in that morning game with Johnson City. And he seemed to feel pretty good that afternoon. So this is only the 2nd time I've ever done this in all the coaching I've done.
Both of them in this tournament series.
And both of them in this tournament series. I turned around and started Jason in this game. And I believe he pitched 3 innings in the other game with Johnson City, therefore he was eligible for 7 more innings at the 5 o'clock game. And we just more or less started out, and he seemed to be doing pretty good. We played good defense behind him. The game was rolling right along. I'm not sure exactly what inning we scored, but I believe John Campbell's on base, and my son Scott knocked him in for the winning run, I believe, early, and then a little later on, I think John knocked one in for the other run, and we defeated Davidson Academy in that 5 o'clock game by a score of 2-0, and Jason pitched the whole ball game.
All right, gave him 10 innings for the day, so he was through for
He
the
was
tournament.
through.
That leads us to Thursday morning, 10 o'clock.
Well,
We were rolling for the state
we're
championship.
rolling, you know.
We leave out of Summertown. Of course, y'all are already there. We leave out of Summertown. We get to Murfreesboro. It's raining, as it has been off and on all week.
You know, even though we had kind of a dreary type situation, and we played early in the morning every day at 10 o'clock, we had some of the best crowds and spectators over there that you'd ever want to see at a ball game. I can't go on enough about how great our support was while we were over there. And of course, the radio station broadcasted back for those that couldn't come.
WDXC, we were all tuned to DXC.
But the crowds that we had were outrageous. I mean, you know, as far as the support that we had, and me and Coach Campbell were talking every morning. They wouldn't let spectators in until about 9 o'clock. And the Summertown bunch had a whole line up waiting to get in. And every morning we were the first ones in as far as spectators into the ballpark.
You know what they were waiting on? There were about 300 chairback seats.
That's
right
right.
around the
That's
bottom.
right.
And Summertown filled them every ball game.
That's right.
First
Well, like I
come,
said,
first
the
served.
early bird gets
That's
it, you know. But the spectators were great. And, you know, we seemed to pick up support from not only people from Summertown that was there, but we had support all over Lawrence County after we got back and I started talking to people. And it was just great.
I might mention also that some of the other teams,
Yeah.
like AA and AAA, were even rooting for us over there. We were kind of the underdog, I think, or people kind of identified with our team for some reason.
After coming back all the way through that losers bracket, we were kind of the favored team of some of the spectators over there.
Well, this is the first team that's ever lost the first game in a state tournament and won the championship.
That's what I was told
Yeah.
afterwards. I didn't know that.
Well, you didn't need to know that.
Since they started this format, but it was a great feeling.
All right, we
Well,
get
then-
up to, it's 5 minutes to 10, you take the field, it's still raining. We take the mound for the first pitch and the rain stops.
Must have been a sign, Charlie.
Take her from there.
Must have been a sign. In that game, we started
One
out
more thing, you won the toss how many times during the state tournament?
all but one time.
That's what I thought. We were home team every time.
And I guess, you know, I don't know. I didn't call any of them.
Sure.
I let the other coach call. So he just happened to call the wrong thing, I guess.
All right, take
all
the
but
game
once. But we did end up home team, and we started out that ball game on top. We scored first, and in the first inning, in the bottom of the first, we scored 1 run, and we just sailed right along. And of course, the starting pitcher in this game was Greg Burleson. After going through all of these games during this state tournament, I'd come back to the guy that started us off,
Right.
and the guy that has carried us all year long. And Greg probably wasn't feeling that well as far as his arm is concerned, but he pitched great baseball. And we led 1-0 until the 4th inning. And a couple of errors, a couple of key hits on the Davison Academy side, they ended up with 2 runs on us. And of course, that's the way it stayed up until the bottom of the 7th. They were ahead of us going into the bottom of the 7th, 2-1.
All right, let's take this 7th inning and go through it, and then there's a little bit more discussion of the ball game that I'd like to make after we go through this. Well, we might ought to make it before we go through this.
Well, okay.
All right, there was a couple of times in the ball game, was it the first or the second inning, where Brent Blackwood threw the runner out at second. The first one he threw out at second.
I believe that was in the first inning.
All right, that got us out of a hole.
Got
right
us
there.
out of a jam. They had their leadoff man to get a double.
Right.
He went on to third on a little short single into the infield, slow roller type single. So that put us with men at first and third with no outs.
Right.
And next guy popped up to the third baseman, I think, for the first out. Then this was their number 5 hitter, I believe, came up, and he is the same guy that had, no, excuse me, this is a DH that had come up in this position right here. But he had men at first and third with 1 out, and 2 strike count on the batter, and it was one of those strike 'em out, throw 'em out jobs.
And Brent Blackwood caught the strike and threw a strike to
Caught the
second
third
base.
strike on the guy and threw a strike to second base to get the out.
Davidson County couldn't believe what was going on.
Well, they had probably seen his arm throughout the tournament, because a lot of times, you know, in high school ball, with men at first and third, the runner will be going to second.
Right.
But they held, and they held until he got 2 strikes, and then they sent him. And of course, like I said, strike him out, throw him out, and Brent accomplished that. Got us out of a jam.
It's 2 jams that really, throwing the man out at second, got us out of, well, that was what Coleman that come out the end,
Right.
getting us out of those jams. All right, we're 2-1 going to the bottom of the 7th.
2-1 going to the bottom of the 7th. We were the home team by luck of the other coach flipping. And, you know, the guys didn't seem all that pressured. We started off, the first batter for me in that inning was Jason Burleson.
Now, the fans were under a lot of pressure.
Oh, fans were hollering top of their lungs.
Nobody sitting down.
No, there wasn't anybody in their seats. They were up on their feet. Tommy Lee Kidd, one of our
Tommy Hawk Kid.
Tommy Hawk Kid.
Sit up till 1 o'clock that morning.
He was
making
passing out
tomahawks
for everybody, sort of like the Braves did last year.
We may have a picture of him here.
But,
We'll show it later.
He made cheerleader of the year. He don't know that yet.
He was great, but all the fans were up cheering, and of course Jason got on an error. He hit the ball kind of a high hopper to third base, and it caught him in between hops, and he was on.
Right.
So that put our first runner on, and Brent Blackwood come to bat, and rather than just trying to bunt Jason down to second, I let Brent swing away, and of course he came through with a hit.
Clean single over.
Clean
through
single.
shortstop.
And yeah, it was over shortstop, and it was not deep enough to advance Jason on to third, so I had men at first and second with nobody out.
Nobody out. Now's the time to bunt.
Well, my DH, Aaron Bailey, came to bat, and of course, infield was even pulled in, and Aaron laid down a perfect bunt. Perfect bunt, and reached first safely.
It's where the speed come into the
That's right.
thing.
That's right.
He was
placing
fast
the bunt in the right location, and his speed beat the thing out.
And there were no question he beat it
No.
by a
Good step and a half. Probably.
bases loaded, nobody out.
Bases loaded and nobody out.
Behind 2-1.
Behind 2-1,
Bottom of
bottom of the 7th for the state championship. Well, I was determined that we were going to try to get that tying run in,
Right.
and being the home team. And
Number 8 hitter coming up.
Number 8 hitter, John Campbell, coming up. Well, of course, they were expecting the squeeze, and that's what we gave them. Luckily for them, I guess, the ball bounced up and hit John, and it was a foul ball.
All right, this time you gave him a suicide squeeze.
Yes, it was a suicide squeeze. Jason was going all the way on it.
All right, the play executed right, the run scored, John threw it out at first, but you had a man umpiring third base that used his skills.
That's right. Where the ball was bunted, and it, like I said, popped up, nobody could see it except for the infielders and me coaching at third base possibly, and the third base umpire. There's
And
no
a few
way.
fans sitting behind.
There's no way that the umpire behind the plate could have seen it.
Right.
And the play went on through, just like it wasn't even, anything to it. They made the play to first base, and Jason, of course, scored. Fans went crazy.
High ball game.
Tie ball game, they thought. Well, of course, like you said, the guy was on his toes at third base, and he came in and made the correct call.
And he made it instantaneous.
Right.
Everybody just didn't pay attention to
Right.
it.
Right. They were so excited over the run
Right.
getting across.
Right.
But he made the right call. Well, John had to come back, and with 2 strikes on him, I elected not to have him bunt, and he ended up striking out. So that was our first out. Still
One
had
out.
bases loaded.
One out, bases loaded, bottom of the 7th, behind 2-1, with your number 9 hitter coming
Number
up.
9, little Doug Lucius.
Everybody in the house knows he's going to bunt. First pitch. All right,
Well,
go ahead.
I think, Charlie, that everybody thought that on the first pitch, and Doug went to the plate with the most confidence of any player that I've seen in a long time. And even the other defensive team, they were pulled in expecting the bunt, and I didn't give the bunt signal to him. He had confidence that he was going to hit the ball, and I thought, well, with this infield pulled in, Doug's been known to have little flare hits to the outfield. That could be the 2 runs that we needed to win the thing, if he came through with it. So I let him swing away,
Curveball comes.
and he missed it.
Right.
Strike 1. I think he threw him the same pitch again.
Very same pitch, very same place. He missed it by the same amount.
Strike 2.
No balls, 2 strikes.
No balls, 2 strikes, and at that point, I noticed that the infield kind of dropped back to about a normal depth, and I said, we're going for it. And I flashed the sign to Doug for the bunt, and I don't think a lot of the boys in the dugout saw the sign, because some of them told me later that they didn't know what was going on.
What I liked about that, you didn't take time to flash the sign. You flashed the sign when he turned around to get in position. He just looked over there and you flashed it.
It was very quick. I mentioned to Jason Burleson, which was on third base, this was not a suicide type squeeze. I probably call this more or less a safety type squeeze. I told Jason, I said, make sure that the ball's on the ground.
Right.
Well, the ball comes in, pitch comes in, and Doug squares, bunts the ball. It wasn't a perfect bunt. It was located between the pitcher's mound and the first base line.
Had a left-handed pitcher.
Left-handed pitcher on the mound. This Wooten kid, he done a good job for him all through the term and supposedly all through the season. He came off the mound and fielded it off balance with his bare hand. He didn't glove the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, when Jason saw the ball on the ground, he took off. Well, he made a hurried throw, the pitcher did, off balance, and the catcher ended up stretched full length out
Right.
on his stomach, and still couldn't reach the ball. It was thrown that wildly. And of course, Jason scored about that time, and he ended up stretched plumb out,
And we had Brent Blackwood on second.
Brent Blackwood was on second, and Brent's not the fastest human alive, but he had it churning. When I looked up and seen that the ball went by the catcher, I looked at Brent, and he looked like a locomotive coming around third base. And of course, I just gave him the heave-ho to go on.
You just wells to, because he wasn't going to
Well,
stop.
right.
I mean, no stopping.
If you'd have stopped him, he'd probably broke something trying to slow up that fast. But before the catcher could get control of the ball, and he flipped it into the pitcher covering the plate, Brent's legs had already crossed the plate for the winning run.
State championship, and the coach was standing right on home plate.
I about followed him in.
You ran with him, step for step. He was right there with it.
Oh,
And we got
man,
state
I was
championship.
excited as any of those kids were.
State championship, and everything broke loose.
It was something.
Here's
Everybody was shocked in the stands. The talking and the hollering and carrying on, it was great.
here's a scene of what was happening right at the minute. This is right after you crossed home plate, mob scene, which the players really enjoyed because the PA announcer had already warned the fans to stay off the field, which they should have.
That's right.
Let the players enjoy.
Well, I didn't even hear that announcement.
Well, you wasn't supposed to hear that. We got a state championship. We have a few pictures here of this championship team. Let's go through a few of these pictures, and then we'll wrap up with a few comments. There's looked like the coach of the year,
You got the big mouth hollering there, don't you?
mid-state coach of the year, Coach Ricky Haddock. First base coach of the year, Coach Campbell. And the bunting specialist, Doug Lucius. I noticed he ran out there and got that championship trophy.
Oh,
Anybody could get there.
I tell you what, Doug's not the biggest fella in the world, but he felt as big as anybody that day.
And what I think is a picture of the year, this was after the first game on Wednesday, was it?
I think that was
Tuesday.
the after the Lake County win on
Was it?
Tuesday,
On
I
Tuesday.
believe. Because this came out, I believe, in Wednesday's paper.
That's right, yeah. Everybody in Summertown had a copy. I think his mama finally got 15, 20, or 30 copies. I don't know.
You talking about Brent?
Yeah.
Brent's nickname was Black Dog. I don't know where he got that, but Black Dog done an excellent job for us.
He did. All right, here's a picture congratulating the baseball team on their victory. And this last picture, well, not the last, we got one more I want to show. This is him sliding across home plate with a winning run for the state championship. If you could see the expression on his face, you could see the determination that the coach was talking about.
He was gritting those teeth and sliding hard.
Fan support, everybody was on their feet. This was right after the right during the ball game, and the fans were all on their feet.
Yeah, I told Tommy Lee he was our version of the chicken.
Yep.
For the Eagles. With his Tommy Hawk
The Tommy Hawk.
and his headdress.
He had a Atlanta Braves hard hat on with an Indian dress around it, and a Tommy Hawk in his hand. All right, that's a few of the pictures. Here's one more we'll show. State championship trophy.
And we have this sitting down in front of us here, Charlie. We might show after a while a little close-up or whatever, but if you'll notice the big goal area there in the front, that's where we're going to put an 8x10 picture of the team once we get that taken care of.
And then the next week after the tournament was over, the all-mid-state team came out in the Tennessean, and Summertown placed 3 players on the first team. It was Scott Haddock, Larry Parrott, and Greg Burleson was on the first team of the all-mid-state team, and Brent Blackwood and Jason Burleson made the second team, and Coach Ricky Haddock was coach of the year.
I was sure proud of those boys for making that mid-state team, and you know that shows too a lot of determination throughout the season for these guys, and some other people were noticing their accomplishments as well throughout the season.
All right, we've got to look ahead a little bit to next year. Who are some of the names that should be here with us next year that we haven't already mentioned?
Well, like I said, we've had some basically a young team for the last 2 years, and the majority of them are sophomores. I'll have a large group of juniors next year, but we haven't mentioned, I don't think, Clay Henson. He's one of our sophomores coming back next year. Another sophomore that we had was Jay Blackwood, which is Brent's younger brother, and another one, Jamie Perry. Then we had another freshman, Timmy Kinnick, which is on the team for the first time this year, and you know that's one way to start out a freshman career as far as high school season with a state championship. And I think we mentioned a while ago Michael Dickey. He's our third senior and played a lot of outfield for us this year.
All right, looking back after the fact, Do you have any different thoughts now than what you did before the season started?
Well, at the beginning of the season, one day we were sitting over in our little building over there, and we envisioned that we could have a good ball club this year. We didn't really know how good we could be, and as I was saying earlier, this has kind of been a lifelong dream to either play on a championship team or be involved in some way with it, and this year has been a year that I'll never forget, and I'm extremely proud of our kids, the way they've conducted themselves. They won this thing with class, and they've got memories and thoughts that they'll treasure a lifetime.
Well, that's true. Something I'll never forget. I don't think these boys will as well. We didn't mention too much about the support that we had when we came back after our state championship. The feeling that these boys had that were in the van with me as we topped the hill there coming into Hughes's grocery was unbelievable. It looked like half the county was sitting there waiting on us, and of course we had our little parade afterwards, and those guys were on top of the world, and I was too. Which this is a feeling that is very hard to explain. Not very many people get this feeling. I know, this is the first baseball state championship for our county. And I say for the county because with all the support we had over the county throughout this tournament, it's not only a Summertown victory and state championship, but it's a Lawrence County state championship. And that not only is that the first one in baseball, but that's only the second one in the county's history, being the other one a basketball state championship for the Loretta girls. You remember what year that was? 58?
1958 or 1959.
1958, I believe, if I'm not
That
wrong.
was when they first started the girls' state tournament again after several years layoff. Loretta won the first year they started back.
Like I said, it's another thing I'd like to mention, Charlie, for the public's awareness. This Sunday, June the 14th, the Community Bank and Trust, or CB&T, are going to have a community-wide get-together to honor these boys and give them a little recognition. Up here at the bank, on the times is between 2 and 4 Sunday afternoon, June the 14th, and they want to ask everybody in the whole community, or just anybody that wants to come, show up. They're going to have refreshments, entertainment, just everything for these guys to recognize the job well done that they have accomplished.
Another thing we might mention, Coach Ronald Fox from Fox Sporting Goods is going to be up here with some T-shirts and caps,
Souvenirs.
for any of the fans who want to buy those, and a portion of the proceeds will go to the baseball program. He's doing
Right.
that for the baseball program, so we want to thank him as well.
And also, Channel 10 will be there recording the day's activities to be shown on Channel 10. Well, boys, coaches, I thank you for being with us, Rick, and
Appreciate
Kenny,
you for having us here.
Appreciate the coverage.
we really enjoyed it. And this has been another program in the series of Focus on Summertown. I'm Charlie Mabry along with Eddie Tadley, and until next time, be careful.